we're all in the same boat together. Jesus himself said that the two greatest commandments are, 1, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and 2, love your neighbor as yourself. For most of us, that first commandment, we can do that one. We can love the Lord thy God with all our heart. But sometimes that second commandment gets a little bit more dicey. Loving your neighbor as yourself, particularly when your neighbor isn't like you, maybe not the same race, creed, religion, maybe not as nice as you, maybe different from you. So sometimes loving our neighbor as ourself isn't quite so easy. But Jesus says that's the second greatest commandment. So this is pretty important stuff. So today as we talk about it, we're going to talk about it from the perspective of loving your neighbor as yourself because we're all in the same boat together. I want to read you a little story. The title of this story is Friends in Heaven. The author, unknown. Here's how it goes. It said an old cowboy was riding his trusty horse, followed by his faithful dog, along an unfamiliar road. As he rode along, the cowboy suddenly remembered that he had recently died. And then he quickly realized that both his trusty horse and his faithful dog were also dead. Confused, he wondered what was happening and where the trail was leading these three best of friends. After a while, they came to the top of a long hill and saw a beautiful high stone wall topped by a huge golden letter H that glowed in the sunlight. Then he saw a magnificent gate that looked like a mother of pearl, and the street that led to the gate glimmered like gold. He rode towards the gate, and as he got closer, he saw a man at the entrance. Parched and tired out from his journey, he called out, "Excuse me, where are we?" The man answered, "This is ranch heaven." The cowboy said, "Well, would you happen to have some water?" The man answered, "Of course, sir. Come right in, and I'll give you some ice water." As the gate began to open, the cowboy politely asked, "Can I also bring in my faithful friends?" The man answered, "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't allow pets." The cowboy thought for a moment. He paused, and he turned back. And he went back to the road, and he continued his long ride with his trusty horse and his faithful dog. After a while, he came to the top of another hill and saw a dirt road leading to another gate. As he approached the gate, he saw a man inside. "Excuse me," he called to the man. "Do you have any water?" The man answered, "Sure, there's a pump right over there. Help yourself." The cowboy said, "How about my friends here?" The man said, "Of course, they must also be thirsty." So the cowboy and his horse and his trusty dog, they all came in and they all took a long drink of water. When they were full, the cowboy walked back to the man and he asked, "What do you call this place?" The man answered, "This is heaven." The cowboy said, "I don't understand. The man down the road said that was heaven." The man answered at the gate and he said, "Oh, you mean the place with the glitzy gold streets and the fake pearly gates? Well, that's hell." The cowboy responded, "Doesn't it make you angry when they falsely call their place heaven when heaven is really here?" The man at the gate responded, he said, "It doesn't make us angry at all. Actually, we're happy because they screen out the folks who would leave their best friends behind." It's just a story, but you know what? In true life, it rings true. To be loving someone as your neighbor, as yourself, just like Jesus said to do, then you have to be a good friend. To get good friends to help you, you have to do your part. This example, this story, recently took place in my own life. And I want to take you back, to August 25th of 2017. If you were in Texas or anywhere in the world at that time, you heard about a thing called Hurricane Harvey. It hit the south coast of Texas. Particularly hard hit was Houston itself. It was called a 100-year storm. For people living in Houston, they called it a 1,000-year storm. The storm was of biblical proportions. When typically we think of a hurricane, we think of strong winds. And Hurricane Harvey had some strong winds that did some enormous damage. But the real damage was not the winds, it was the water. And this is where this storm, Hurricane Harvey, in August of 2017, was of biblical proportions because of the flooding. There was more than $125 billion, that's billion with a B, of damage to the city of Houston and the surrounding communities. 1/3 of the entire city of Houston was underwater at one time during Hurricane Harvey. More than 50 inches of rain fell in just a few days. And to put that in perspective, if you live in Chicago, it takes just over a year for 50 inches of rain to fall. If you live here where we are in Dallas, Texas, it takes almost a year and a half for 50 inches of rain to come down. But yet in Houston, it came down in just a few days. And there's no system, there's no irrigation or sanitation or drainage system that can handle that kind of water. So it was a storm, literally, and a flood of biblical proportions. More than 1 million vehicles were destroyed. But the saddest thing about the whole Hurricane Harvey storm was more than 100 people died. This was a bad storm. And when this was hitting, it made the news all over the world. And as I watched here from Dallas, Texas, and watched the TV images, and watched and read in the Dallas Morning News about this storm of biblical proportions, I felt called to go from Dallas down to Houston to help out. And a lot of good people did that very same thing. So I prayed about this, and I said, Lord, you really want me to go to Houston? My work is here in Dallas. And the answer was yes. And the thought that came to me was, love your neighbor as yourself. The other thought that came to me is, we are all in the same boat. Houston is our neighbor. Those people are suffering. We need to go down and help them. So I decided I would take one of the SoupMobile vans, load it up with supplies, food, water, any kind of supplies that could help the victims of Hurricane Harvey. And I decided I was going to drive down to Houston and help them and stay for a week. But I also thought to myself, if I'm going to Houston, I'm going to unknown territory here. My turf is in Dallas, Texas. I know the turf here, but I don't know the turf down in Houston. And more than that, they're flooded out. I don't know what to expect. And I thought to myself, David, if you're going to go down to Houston, you need a wingman. And I thought to myself, who could I ask? I need somebody that I can trust, somebody that's tough, somebody that can handle the uncertainty of this trip, somebody that will be willing to go and go shoulder to shoulder with me as we help these people in Houston. So I thought, and I prayed about it, and the thought came to me, ask a man by the name of Harvard Davis. Now, who is Harvard Davis? Harvard Davis is a man that I've known for more than a decade. At the SoupMobile, he's our warehouse manager, and he's also the manager of SoupMobile Church. So he's a man that's not just an employee, though, of the SoupMobile. This is a man that I call friend. So I went to Harvard Davis, and I said, Harvard, this is what I'm going to do. I said, I'm going to Houston. I said, I'm going no matter what. I'm loading the van up with food and supplies and water. I'm going to Houston, but I could use a good wingman. Without hesitation, he looked at me and he said, when do we leave? Now that's a friend. That's somebody that you can trust and count on. You see, Harvard understood this principle of we're all in the same boat together. He wasn't thinking to himself, well, we're up here in Dallas. There's blue skies here. There's no rain up here in Dallas. Why should we drive all the way down to Houston and help them? We've got our own issues up here taking care of the homeless. But that wasn't his thought at all. His thought was, love your neighbor as yourself. And Houston was our neighbor. So together, we drove down to Houston with our van loaded full of supplies. And we spent a week there. And what a week it was. One day we worked with the Red Cross, helping them. Another day, we went to the huge convention center in Houston where they had more than 10,000 flood victims sleeping on cots. And we helped over there. One day we worked on the back docks, unloading supplies. Another day at the convention center, we were feeding the homeless in their makeshift kitchen. One day we were transporting people. Several of the days that we were in Houston, We actually worked with the regular homeless people that are in Houston, Texas. People forgot about them, the regular homeless. And those people got hit just as hard. We talked to some homeless people that were living in tents along the bayous. And when that water came and that flooding came, it came so quickly that they got away literally with their lives, and nothing was saved. Everything was washed away when those bayous overflowed. So the people that were homeless in Houston already before the storm, they needed a lot of help. And we helped them, and we fed them too, and gave them supplies. So it was a week that we didn't know what to expect when we got there, but it was a week where we worked shoulder to shoulder, and we did it because we believed in our hearts that we're all in this same boat together. And we were. Houston was in the same boat as Dallas, and Dallas was in the same boat as Houston. And so we went together. Now, that's the kind of friend that you want to have in your life, a friend like Harbor Davis. But to have a friend like that, you have to be a good friend yourself. And this is where it comes in your own lives, that you can make a difference in other people's lives. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can make a difference in other people's lives in just a few minutes. But I want to look now from the Bible perspective of this idea of we're all in the same boat together. And for that, we're going to go to the book of Luke. We're going to chapter 5 and verse 17. But first, the backstory. What's happening back in history at the time of this story in the book of Luke? Well, Jesus is walking the earth. Now, we know Jesus was on the earth for about 33 years. But it was the last 3 years of his life that his ministry really kicked into high gear. And this is the time of this story. But it's early in his ministry. But he's already done, Jesus, a lot of amazing things. He's already turned the water into wine. He's already cast out demons. He's healed lepers. He healed Peter's mother-in-law. He healed the centurion's servant, who he never even saw by just speaking the word. So Jesus has already done a lot, but he's still early in his ministry. Hasn't walked on the water yet, by the way. So this is a time where Jesus is very well known. In his time, he was like a rock star. Everybody knew him. Even without CNN and 24-hour news and satellite TV, everybody knew who Jesus was. But remember, he was both beloved and he was hated. The Pharisees and the Sadducees, they hated this guy. They felt threatened by Jesus. Jesus, if you think about it, pretty unconventional guy for his time. The water into wine thing, nobody else was doing that. Healing people, casting out demons, nobody else was doing that. So the Pharisees and Sadducees, they're threatened by this guy. They actually want to kill him. But he's also beloved. The people love this guy that is preaching forgiveness and kindness and love and healing people. They love Jesus. So let's pick up the story right here early in Jesus' ministry in verse 17. It said, one day Jesus was teaching, and the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were sitting there. Everywhere Jesus went, the regular people went, but the Pharisees and the teachers always there on the lookout, trying to catch him in some kind of mistake. It said they had come from every village of Galilee and from Judea and from Jerusalem. They came from all over to hear Jesus. And it says the power of the Lord was with Jesus. And it said some men came carrying a paralyzed man on a mat and tried to take him into the house and lay him before Jesus. But they could not find a way because of the crowd. Now here is one of the most amazing stories you can read in the Bible. And by the way, remember this Bible? This is good reading stuff here. You can get into some great, interesting stories in the Bible, and we're going to find out that this story is just as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. So Jesus is preaching, but back then they didn't have churches like SoupMobile Church. He would do his preaching in people's houses. So he'd go to somebody's house, and the crowd would come, and he would preach right inside the house. So these 4 men, 5 of them actually, 4 men and a man on a stretcher, they come, and why are they coming? Because they want healing for their friend on the stretcher. These 4 men are carrying their friend, and they get there, and the crowd is huge, which it always was with Jesus. They couldn't get in. What would we have done if we had been one of those 4 men? Would we have turned to our friend and said, sorry, Pete, too big a crowd, we can't get there. Maybe another time we'll bring you to see Jesus. No. These four guys understood the principle. They understood the concept that we're all in the same boat together. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us their backstory of these five men, but you can imagine maybe they grew up together. There were five children growing up together, and they were all healthy at the time. But something happened in their adult life where this one man became paralyzed. The four friends did not desert him. The four friends are such good friends, they're bringing him to get healed by Jesus. But they can't get in. The crowd is too big. What do? One of those friends got an idea. And the idea was to go up on the roof of this house and burrow through the roof and let the guy down on ropes. The other three friends, we don't know who was which, the other three friends said, yeah, we can do it. And the guy on the stretcher said, yeah, let's do it. We can only imagine the conversation those five men were having. And so what? They do it. They go up on the roof of this house and they go through the roof and they lower this man down. And this was no small thing. This roof here, back in those days, the roofs either had these big, long wooden branches and there was mud packed on them, or they would have tiles where mud was packed on top of them, hard mud that would bake, so they would be waterproof. So getting through a roof like that, no easy task back then. But imagine if you were inside the house when this is happening. Imagine as we stand here today in SoupMobile Church, we hear some commotion up on the roof. And I look up and they're making a hole in the roof of SoupMobile Church. And then I see they're lowering a man down on a stretcher. That's what was happening 2,000 years ago. How did Jesus handle it? Did he get offended? No. Did he say, hey, you guys interrupted me. I'm talking. I'm on a roll here. Why are you doing this? He didn't get offended at all. Now, the Bible doesn't tell us, but I'm betting some of the people in the crowd were offended. They were offended that they were coming down through the roof. But these four men were determined to help their friend because they believed we're all in the same boat together. And they lowered this man down through the roof. Right there. There had to be dust and branches and debris falling down, probably on Jesus himself. But they lowered him right through the roof. These four men, those are the kind of friends that you want to have on your side, but those are the kind of people you want to be yourself. Will you go the extra mile to help somebody else? And when you do it, it's important to remember there's a reward for you. And I'll talk about in that just a minute. But I want to see and finish the story and tell you what Jesus did as this is all coming to a close. It says, Jesus saw their faith, not just the faith of the man on the stretcher, but the faith of the four men that were carrying him. And he says to the man on the stretcher, your sins are forgiven you. And he goes on to say to the paralyzed man, I tell you, get up, take up your mat and go home. And immediately he stood up in front of them and he took his mat and he went home. Now, that's what Jesus does when you have faith, but more important in this story, he saw the connection here between these five men. He saw this concept of being in the same boat together. Because remember, Jesus is the one that said, love your neighbor as yourself. That's what these four men are doing. Someday, when I get to heaven, I'm looking these four men up. I want to talk to these guys. I want to shake their hand, and I want to say, what was that conversation going on when you guys got stopped at the door when you couldn't get in? Whose idea was it? And you other three, you actually said yes? What were you thinking there? I want to talk to these guys, four amazing guys. In your own lives, let's talk about if there's a reward for doing good for other people. Now, the Bible says most definitely there's a reward. It says, give and it shall be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing shall it be given unto you. Now, some people think that means money. Well, that could be part of it, but it means so much more. When you give to others, it comes back to you multiplied over. In Ephesians, it says, rendering service to one another with goodwill as if to the Lord and not to man, knowing that whatever good anyone does, he will receive back from the Lord. There's a reward when you give to your fellow man. There's a reward when you love your neighbor as yourself. Now, you don't do it to get the reward. You do it because your heart leads you to do it, but then God steps in with the reward. Now, Some people say to me, well, Pastor, that all sounds wonderful. Yeah, I want to help my fellow man, but you don't know what my life is right now. I don't have anything to give. I can't help anybody, but I would beg to differ. You have a lot to give. How about a smile for somebody? A smile can go a long way. How about a pat on the back to somebody? How about a listening ear? Will you just listen to somebody? Let them talk, a friendly ear. How about a hug? How about praying for somebody? There's so much you can do for your fellow man, and sometimes it's the little things that mean the most. It doesn't always have to be going to Houston for Hurricane Harvey. It doesn't always have to be lowering people down through the roof. It can be the small things that make the biggest difference in people's lives. 25 years ago, more than 25 years ago, when my late wife was still alive and I was a caregiver for her, we were in church in a strange city one Sunday. And after the service, the pastor, who I'd never met before, I didn't know from Adam, the pastor came up to me. Now, somehow he knew that as a caregiver for my wife, somehow he knew that I was burnt out. Somehow he knew that my gas tank was on empty and literally running on fumes. Somehow he knew that I needed a kind word. And that pastor came up to me, and he was a huge, big guy, 6'5". He was bigger than Harvard. He came up to me, he put his arm around me, and he said 4 words. He said, "It's going to be all right." And then he repeated it. "It's going to be all right." To this day, more than 25 years later, I remember what happened. But more important, I remember how I felt when he did it. I remember I felt this huge sense of relief wash over me. The pastor was telling me, it's going to be okay. It was just what I needed to hear at just the point of my life I needed to hear it. 4 words. Took less than 10 seconds for him to do it. But to this day, I still remember it and remember how I felt. Don't discount the power of small things. A kind word, a smile, a pat on the back, a prayer. It can last people a lifetime. Love your neighbor as yourself. Surround yourself with good friends. Be a good friend, because after all, we're all in the same boat together. Hello, friends. My name is David Timothy, but on the streets of Dallas, they call me the SoupMan. And with me today is my lovely wife, Shanna.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to SoupMobile Church. We are so happy to have you with us today.
SoupMobile Church is a one-of-a-kind church on the entire planet. It's because it's the home church for the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. The homeless have never had their own home church until now. However, we want you to know that the SoupMobile is more than just a church ministry. Shanna, can you tell us about the birth of the SoupMobile?
The SoupMobile was founded in 2003 on a wing and a whole lot of prayers.
Amen to that. So the SoupMobile mission statement is 3 simple words spoken by Jesus himself more than 2,000 years ago. Shanna, can you tell us what those 3 words are?
Feed my sheep.
That's right. Feed my sheep. Feed my sheep. At the SoupMobile, we feed his sheep in 4 separate and distinct ways. First, we literally feed his sheep. The SoupMobile is a mobile soup kitchen serving more than 250,000 meals per year to the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. The second way we feed his sheep is the SoupMobile shelters the homeless. Our shelter program is transitional. It's designed to take a homeless man or woman right off the streets, put a safe roof over their heads, help them get a job, and then when they're ready, return them as working, productive members of the community. Our shelter program is a hand up, not a handout. The third way that we feed his sheep is at Christmas. Every year at Christmas, the SoupMobile takes 500, yes, 500 homeless men, women, and children, and we put them up for Christmas at the downtown Dallas Omni Hotel. They all get new clothes, fabulous gifts, lots of love, and we hold a huge mega banquet for them and in their honor. But most important, when they wake up on Christmas morning, it's in a warm, safe bed at the spectacular Dallas Omni Hotel, not in a cardboard box under a bridge somewhere. And the fourth way that the SoupMobile feeds his sheep is SoupMobile Church. And for us, this is the icing on the cake. The homeless have been called the largest unevangelized population in the United States. The SoupMobile Church is laser-like focused on bringing Christ to the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. So that's it in a nutshell. The SoupMobile is really 4 missions in one. We feed the homeless, 250,000 meals a year. We shelter the homeless. We give them a magical Christmas. And of course, SoupMobile Church, bringing Christ to the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. So ask yourself, do you like what we're doing? Do you think it has merit? If you do, I would ask you to give prayerful consideration to joining the SoupMobile Dream Team. What's the Dream Team? Well, it's people like you and me that have a passion for serving Christ and like the mission of the SoupMobile. What's it going to cost to join the SoupMobile Dream Team? It's $5 a month. Yes, that's it, $5 a month. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that your $5 a month can't possibly make much of a difference in the life of a homeless person. And you would be absolutely right. Your $5 individually can't make much of a difference. But your $5, along with the $5 of thousands of other Dream Team members, can and will make a huge difference in the life of the homeless right here in Dallas, Texas. So how do you join the Dream Team? Simple. Go to our website, soupmobile.org, O-R-G, soupmobile.org. Click on the Dream Team button, read all about it, and if you still like it, you can join the Dream Team right online. And as our special way of saying thank you, we're going to send you, when you join the Dream Team, this special commemorative coin that my wife Shanna is holding. On the front of this coin is a picture of Jesus, and it says, "Feed my sheep," John 21:16. And then on the reverse side of the coin, it says, "Feeding and sheltering the homeless since 2003. And then at the very bottom, it says, "God bless America." So when you join the SoupMobile Dream Team, we'll send you this special keepsake coin. It's an impressive coin. It weighs in at 58 grams. And I promise you, it's a keepsake that you'll be proud to have in your home. Well, that's it for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. May the Lord bless and keep you all.